Talking OP King sounds really weird the way I'm saying it. He finds this move. It's that memorable. It's that cool. Your king can do two things at once. Okay, so I'm talking OP King, so I'm gonna need my crown. Got it right here. And as we go into this, we're looking at a study created by the great Reti, the person who's named after the Reti opening. And also, if you don't play the Reti opening, or if you get the Reti opening played against you, it's super scary. It's really fun because you know there's all sorts of shenanigans that are about to happen. In this video, we're looking at how a king can do two things at once in order to do things that don't look like they should be possible to do at all. So Reti created this chess study in 1921. I went back, I remembered this study from looking at it years ago. When we look at it together, you can use it in your own games as well. So as we look here at the position, we have white. It's white to move, and white's trying to draw this game. How the heck is he going to draw this game? You can see that this black pawn is about to run down the board and make a queen. And then the white pawn, if he goes here, the black king is going to go here. And he's not going to make it very far. So how do we accomplish this? Before I jump into that, I just want to talk through the concept of the square of the pawn. Let's say it's black's move right now, and he starts to go try to make a queen. The white king, as he goes through to try to catch the black pawn, is not going to make it. So let's jump back just a minute. Imagine from this pawn here, we're going to try to make a square to the end row. So what you want to do is you want to draw a diagonal here, go all the way up here, all the way over, right? And then this here, this is actually going to be our square. So like, let's just say, for instance, that instead of that, let's say the pawn's right here, you're going to want to draw your diagonal arrow here, and then this is going to be your square. And each pawn move that goes forward, obviously that square gets a little bit smaller. So what's the idea of the square? If the king is able to move into the square, then he's going to be able to stop the pawn. So in this example right here, with black moving, he's created a new square when he made his movement. So let's just draw that really quick. So his square is actually, this is his square. And when it's white's move, white cannot get into the square. He's too far away from the square. So as we go back here, let's just say, okay, instead of that, black moved here. If white now moved here, he's made it into the square of the pawn. He's still in the square, he's still in the square, and he's able to barely stop that black pawn. So as we go back to our study all the way at the beginning, with white to move here, he cannot get into the square of this black pawn. He's too far. And at the same time, white's pawn is in the square of the black king. I know it's like, it sounds really weird the way I'm saying it, and it's probably not the right terminology, but you get the idea. You got to get in the square in order to stop the pawn. So what does white do? Well, white has to play something. We know that if we play this move here, we have this move here, and we basically have no hope. So, I mean, by process of elimination, okay, I guess we'll go here. So black is, I guess, I'll go here maybe? I don't know. Again, you got to get a little bit closer. And really, as you're going these center moves versus going down, white's trying to accomplish kind of two things. Let's imagine for a second that the white king is right here. He's able to escort his pawn all the way to make a queen. And so what white is doing is white's actually just getting closer. So if black kind of continues with his plan, okay, I'm going to now make a queen, and obviously queen, queen, that's great. And if in this point, instead of making a queen, black tries to stop him, oh, cool, that's great. We're going to make a queen anyway, and after you make your queen, I'm going to make my queen with check, and I'm going to be able to secure that draw. Okay, going back a couple more moves, what are black's other options? Well, let's say that, okay, well, why don't I just get a little bit closer and try to take your pawn right now? Well, again, we want to remain flexible, so we're going to get a little bit closer in case we do need to escort that pawn. If black decides to go here, again, we're going to get a little bit closer, and we're getting ready to start escorting our own pawn. So if black doesn't take this pawn right now, we're going to be able to have our escort duties. And let's say he does decide to take the pawn right now, we already know we're going to be able to get within this square. So anyway, black continues forward, white goes here, black continues, and again, if queen, then queen. If tries to block, we already know what happens here. We continue to escort our pawn, and we're gonna promote with check. That was the inspiration. I saw this years and years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. It's that memorable, it's that cool. Your king can do 2 things at once. Let's take a look at my game. What happened for me here? What brought about this memory from the distant past? It opened with e4. I played the perk. I have an opening video out on the perk. I'll link it at the end here. Continues forward as we get to the Austrian attack. The typical idea here is if white does play this move right here, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create this really cool looking attack where we're going to pin this knight and have all of this pressure here. It's really, really cool. So what white does here instead of that is white actually plays this bishop move right here, and I wasn't super ready for this, and I knew it kind of screwed up my plans because I can't really take this pawn right here, but I kind of ignored my better judgment, and I played this anyway and tried to force something to happen. And what ended up transpiring is I got into this kind of weird position. I've got the 2 bishops, which I kind of like, but I've got this damage structure. I can't castle, but I mean, the queens are off the board. I guess I don't really need to castle. And here, all my pieces are just like really kind of inactive. I'm trying to hold on to my pawns and keep equal material, which may or may not be the best plan. Right here, I didn't want to close off my bishop. I'm probably being a little bit too ambitious for how really not great my position is. And as we continue over here, again, what I'm trying to do right now is get my bishop here to d5, kind of lock some stuff down. Obviously, this would pin this knight and put some pressure there. This exchange is kind of forced. I do get over to here. Instead of this king to d6 move, better would have been captures, and then here. Obviously, this square is being controlled quite well, so hopefully I can, eventually target this backwards pawn. That's not what I do. I get my king up. I'm trying to get a more active king. I'm trying to solve some problems here, trade off some pieces. Again, this is my really weak backwards pawn, so if I could trade this pawn for this pawn, I'm going to be really happy, which does happen. White misses a really, really cool opportunity here. This check right here, in order to remove the defender of this bishop and then open up this discovered attack here, it's just like, it's super, super cool. My best continuation at this point would be something like this, in which case white gets this passed pawn and a ton of pressure. Luckily for me, instead of that, he does end up trading off this pawn for me, and then he finds this move, the very next move. It's still the best move on the board, but it's just not quite as potent because after these trades, he doesn't have that passed pawn right here. And at this point, he's up a pawn, and I know that, hey, my pieces still aren't involved. I need to be active, and partially this is developed. Partially, I'm trying to block this square from the rook because my plan is I'm going after these pawns and I'm creating my own counterplay. I'm going to try to create my own queen. Let's see how successful or unsuccessful that's going to be. And what white does here, he plays over. I'm going after those pawns. White's best move here actually is here to attack the rook and then to do some sort of check to defend here. And luckily, instead of that, he plays here. I have this really cool forced tactic to trade off. And I'm getting en passant right here, fake moves. I'm getting this somewhat race. And here's what really reminded me of the Reti study. Right now, white is just a little bit ahead. Luckily, I have this knight here to kind of slow him down a little bit. But what I saw here is, how do I get my king a little bit closer? I want to remain within the square of these pawns, and I also want to potentially escort my own pawns to queen. So I move forward. Again, it's that multi-purpose move. I'm getting closer to his pawns, and I'm getting closer to this all-critical promotion square. If I could get my king to here, or at the very least prevent white's king from getting to the h1 square, I'm going to be able to queen my pawn, and this knight's going to be just a little bit too slow to get there. So he plays forward, which I like. Again, I move forward here. If I would have just started marching my pawn here right now, white would actually be able to get in there, and I wouldn't be able to stop him from stopping my pawns. So this move right here guarantees that I'm going to be able to promote my pawn. If he does get any closer, I can always block him completely. So when white starts moving his stuff forward, his plan here is to get his pawns all the way up here and then force a promotion. And my plan is a lot simpler. I just keep pushing my h-pawn. Right here, big mistake would be to capture that knight, because if I capture the knight, I'm just helping his own pawns move forward. I'm not helping my pawns move forward, so ignore that threat. You could have my knight. I'm going to queen first. And right here, I make this big mistake. Queening first is paramount. I could always capture that knight afterwards, because at this point, I give white the opportunity to queen his pawn. I don't know. I'm getting short-sighted at this point. I've got 49 seconds left on the clock. But after I do this, luckily, he recaptures, and we get the same position. And I'm able to secure a draw with a repetitive. It's just so cool to me that a game from so long ago that I was just read once in a book can affect my games here today. That's how memorable, that's how cool that position was. So do yourself a favor, check out that book if you want to. I'll shoot a link that's not sponsored in the description below. Check out my perk opening course. This game is no indication on that. Make sure you're flexible when you do play your openings. Have a great day, guys. Have some fun with it, okay?